Okay, I don't really know what I want the content of this video to be. I missed yesterday's upload. I didn't really have much I wanted to talk about, so I kind of just didn't do it. And from an accountability standpoint, I'm trying to acknowledge that I didn't do it for a certain reason, but I also don't want to excuse the fact that I didn't stick to it. Like, I thought I was going to. I mean, not to justify not getting it done, but batting 9 out of 10 is pretty good, right? So, I guess one thing that I do want to talk about that happened to me yesterday was I was helping this, I work in a restaurant. I was helping this deaf couple who came into the restaurant, and that was a situation that I've been placed in that I'm still relatively new to serving. So, I never been in that situation. I didn't really know what to do, and in retrospect, it was fairly obvious, to be fair. And my coworker comes up to me and says, "Hey, your table over there is deaf," and I didn't really know what to do, so I just pointed at our QR system. And I kind of just sat there and took in the information. I looked at her and I was like, "Well, if that was all you could do, like, what do you expect me to do?" And so one of my floor managers happened to be standing there, and I kind of just quickly informed him of what was going on and that I didn't know how to be in that situation. And as those words escaped my mouth, something in my head went, if this is a situation that you've never been put in, this is your chance to grow as a person. This is your chance to use your critical thinking, come up with a solution, right? And so I immediately turned away from him. I stared up at the wall, and I don't know if it helped me think or not. I made this gesture with my arms and I just went, "What's my game plan?" I said out loud, and he was about to say something. I heard him utter something, and then he kind of stopped as he saw me pondering. And I thought about, well, I could make a bunch of gestures about doing stuff, but I'd feel kind of like an asshole if I did that. Like, I'm coming up to this deaf couple who just wants to enjoy their evening of food and drink, and I'm gonna come over there and not meet them halfway. Like, I don't know sign language. So what is my next best course of action? So I gathered some things. I went up to the bar and I grabbed a pen and paper. I came back, grabbed some paper menus. I got a clipboard. So first thing, I came up to them. I brought some waters to them. I just waved. I didn't open my mouth or anything. And they kind of looked up at me, and I just pointed to each of our menus, and then I pointed to the food menu, and I made the gesture of eating, and I pointed to the drink menu, and I made the gesture of drinking. And bless her heart, the woman on the table brought out her phone and was asking me questions about our fish. And that signaled to me, okay, the pen and paper idea was probably the better route to go instead of making gestures. Like, that was probably going to take forever. Everyone has to guess what the other is doing. Terrible way to communicate. Pen and paper, obviously, in a silent environment, you'd probably communicate through text, like script. That's how you communicate non-verbally over phone, right? When you're not calling someone, you're texting them words and then you're reading it. I don't know why it wasn't immediately apparent. It was, well, in all honesty, it was probably the fact that I had been thrown into a situation where I panicked and thought, this is a special case, this needs special attention. And as I'm writing out to them, I'm still smiling, I'm still giving them attention, I'm telling them how to flag me down because obviously they don't talk the same way we talk. So I told them to just wave at me if they see me around and they need something from me. And so throughout the night, I would periodically go back and check on them. I would write out what I needed to ask them before going up. Hey, is everything okay over here? Do we need any help? And throughout the night, that's how we communicated with each other. And all they really asked from me was for my name. And they had said, "Oh, what's your name?" And so I told them, "Oh, my name is Kavika." And they wrote down, "You're the best." And it was the face that I saw when I looked up of that genuine like appreciation for the extra step that I went for them, to not belittle them in any way and only stick to gestures and like make the whole process painful as possible for them, because I assume it's very hard for them whenever they go out, especially in a place like Hawaii where there's a lot of different cultures, there's a lot of different languages, and for someone who might not be the best at reading or writing in English, that communication starts to break down, because then what do you have to rely on after that? You only have your written skills, because their speech might be imperceivable to someone who is from a different country and is not really used to hearing the English language yet. And so throughout the night, I just made my frequent trips to them, checked in on them, make sure they're okay. And something about them going out of the way to make it easier on me in writing stuff out, taking that first step, made me think, wow, well, what was I doing here? Like, my job is to be of service, and I felt I was in that situation of minimal service, even though we did find a common ground in writing. I took it a step further and I learned how to say thank you and good night in sign language. Two very easy gestures. Thank you and then good night. So as they were leaving, I signed to the couple, thank you and good night. And the gentleman, who hadn't really spoken much to me the whole night, it was mostly his wife, I assume she was, he stopped and he turned back, and the brightest smile ever, right? Signed back to me, thank you, good night. And it was just a cool moment, where I had been scared initially. I'm not even gonna lie, I was scared to approach that situation. I didn't want to offend anybody. My job is not to make things hard for people. It's not to give people attitude when they come to the restaurant, even though I might have had a bunch of bad apples that day and they made it hard for me to do my job. That's not any other table's fault. Just because they come in grumpy doesn't mean that I have to show the same attitude back. And something about that couple made me really grateful for the position that I was in. And hearing the comments that some other coworkers were making, it was like, oh wow, like I wouldn't have been able to navigate that, or like, oh, they humbled me real quick, blah 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 blah. And it was a thing to me where I was like, well, you should want to be in those situations. You should want to grow as a person, not be limited to your one belief system, not be limited to your method of doing things. So now, in my head, I have that prepared for me. I know what to do when a deaf couple comes in. I may not know what to do when a different form of disability comes in. That's a situation that I will have to approach differently depending on what's going on. And even when we have international customers come in, Japanese people, it's a big thing for them to be respectful, and I try to show that same energy back whenever they ask me for things and I'm dropping things off. Not out of any kind of malintent or whatever. They bow to me and I reciprocate that bow. I'm in service of them. I'm supposed to be the one bowing. They should not be bowing to me at my restaurant. I bow to them. It's a sign of courtesy and respect. That was something that was taught to me when I did martial arts in Taekwondo. That's a Korean martial art. If anyone's unfamiliar with it, it's now in the Olympics. Maybe everyone's familiar with it. But we bowed every time we entered and exited the building, and not bowing facing out the door. When we were leaving, we turn around and we bow facing in. That was a sign of our respect for the place, for what it was to us. It was a sacred place. And for these people, they're meeting us halfway already by trying to speak in English, trying to ask for things in their non-native tongue. And who are we to take advantage of that and just say it's our way or the highway? I think that in this position of being a server, it's been giving me a new perspective on life and how to treat people. And for any of the men out there, I know it's probably hard to think of everybody as someone who might be going through something worse than you, because as men, we can't really talk about our feelings or what we're going through to many people because we get criticized, we get told things like suck it up or other things like that, or the situation gets dismissed, or we get given advice that has no real relevancy to what we're going through. And I think in those situations, it's really important for us to understand that person might just be like me. That person might have it harder than me. This might be their first time in this situation and they're scared as hell. They don't know what to do. Meet them halfway. Just just be kind, you know? I guess that's really all I wanted to get at today. Is more of a appreciation, I guess, for what happened to me, or not what happened to me, what I had the honor of being part of last night. Right? That's all for today.